Hello, this is Steve Ramona, your host for Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I want to thank our sponsors, Infone, and with Infone, you can place your business on everybody's cell phone, turn their business into a web app, and with a click of a button, they'll have access to you 24/7. And also Pantheon.fm. Have you ever thought about monetizing and taking your podcast to the next level? Well, Pantheon can do that. Let us show you how. Reach out to Steve Ramona, the host, at infone.co/SR1, and I will go over with you how you can make your podcast really stand out. Let's enjoy the show. Thanks again, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I am really excited to have this guest on because what we're going to talk about today will be a game changer in your business, and it's so simple. But you need somebody, an expert, to help you with that, and I have an expert today. Audie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Let's get into it because I'm excited. I help a lot of business people, and what you do is so... Marketing and this are two things that I see companies are missing. Talk about business and processes.
Right. So, processes, you're right that you brought up marketing, because I tell business owners, look, if you are in the process of starting a business, so you don't have enough business coming in, you need marketing. You need new clients, new patients, new customers. You need the influx of leads coming in. And if you're good at what you're doing, you're going to get to a point where you're going to grow, right? And you want to scale. So, for instance, we work with fast growing companies that are lacking consistency. This is one aspect of our clients. And the other aspect are business owners that are looking at exiting the business in a few years. Right. And they want everything documented so then they can increase the value of the business. So you really have to find your why business processes are so important for you.
And does that lead to your purpose? Do you bring the purpose in with this? The purpose
Absolutely.
of the business? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, 100%, because, we can't start documenting. Like basically what we do is we document, create, and implement processes and procedures for businesses. And we also help with process improvement. We need to have processes is not the most, how should we say, it's not glamorous. It's not it's not like, when I throw out their SEO and social media, it sounds much more exciting, right? Processes are not that exciting. I mean, it can be exciting for some people that like organizations and putting order, but it's maybe not exciting to create them, right? It can be tedious. It can be a lot of work. It can be something that people have tried in the past, but haven't been successful. So before you engage on any journey of documenting your processes for your company, you really have to define for yourself, why are you doing it? So then you can get excited about it and you can actually, continue on that project. So you can actually get to the end of the journey and have well-documented processes and procedures.
That's well said. I love the excitement because I think that's missing in business, especially failure businesses that are failed. Their excitement is gone. Are these, so we literally put this on paper. So you do a whole, I call it a playbook. You probably have a different word, but.
No, I actually call it a playbook as well.
Good.
I like the word playbook. It's not paper. It's like anything else nowadays. It's electronic. Yes, it can be printed, but I definitely use a platform. I have different software that I use as a platform to document the processes and procedures. So, I prefer it on a platform that is cloud-based, that is very easy to be, that is accessible by everyone, that can be easily changed. Because one of the things is, you can document processes and procedures, but it's a never-ending job, right? You can have the bulk of it documented, and you do need to, but it's always evolving, always has to be reviewed and revised. And when you have it on a cloud-based system, then you will actually be able to do that much easier than just, having to print everything all the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm an older guy. That's why I say print. I got to show my age there, but you're right, because it's accessible. There's no excuse on the phone and whatever. What I think is really cool that you do is the ever changing you just said. And that's where you come in, because business change, you need to come in and change those processes, right?
Correct. Or, it depends on the maturity of the business, and
Yeah.
depends what the business is. So let's say, for instance, we're working with a construction company. Okay. So let's take an example. We're working with, an heating and cooling and HVAC company. So, the way that they're going to dispatch the technicians, it's probably not going to change that much, but they need the processes documented. So then when they bring on a new technician, it's very easy to train and onboard. Or they have 5 technicians and you want to make sure that there is consistency on how they do things. They all knock on the door the same way. They present themselves the same way. They present the estimate the same way. There is consistency on how they do things, right? So that's another reason why you want to document. So we will document and we'll create that playbook. Let's say we'll call it the technician playbook, right? The technician playbook, a playbook for the technicians. And that is something that can be used to onboard, to train, to refer to when things are not being done correctly, etc. But let's say now they implemented the new software in order to present their estimates. Good. So now you still have the core of your processes in there, but you can go and add in the right spot, how do they use the new process and how does it integrate with the existing processes?
Oh, interesting. I like that. So you bolt on. So they come in with a third party. You go, okay, let's get it into the process.
Right.
Let's say it's a CRM. That's everybody knows.
Yeah,
CRMs.
exactly. So yeah,
Perfect.
so the CRM now has to be part of the process. Yeah.
So I just circled lack of consistency. How important is consistency in these processes?
It's super important. It's not just the process and the consistency in the business, right? I mean, the need for processes are basically what's going to create your consistency. Because let's say, again, you have 3 estimators, 5 estimators, you have, 6 technicians, you have 8 customer service people. Well, each one of them can just, if you didn't train them and you don't have a manual to train them, or you train them verbally, each one of them will bring their habits from other places. They will do it their own way. It can be basically, you're not gonna achieve consistency. And if you really think about it, why? That's another why question. Is like, why do businesses really need consistency? And I think it's an answer that our listeners have to answer for themselves. Like, if you had right now well-documented processes and procedures that will give you consistency in the business, what changes would it make for you? And I really challenge my clients to answer that question, because if your answer is, well, it won't going to make a difference, then you're not ready. You either have it and the business is super organized, or it's just not the right thing right now.
Right.
But if you take a look at it and you go, okay, consistency, let's talk about it right now. Like, why consistency is important for businesses? Well, it will improve your customer service, right? Because every customer, every client will get the same service. It's true even in my own business. I want each one of my clients to get top-notch service. But if I have several consultants or several writers and they are not on par with each other, and each one of them is approaching things in a different way, which again, it's not wrong, because you still have to have your creativity and creative people. So let's say I have writers, they will have their own way of looking at things, and some are better with some clients than others, like in some industries. But the way that we are approaching every call should be the same. The way that we are extracting information should be the same. The way that we present it for the clients should be the same. You can't have one that is excellent at what they do and then another employee that is mediocre. So then the client that the mediocre employee is serving is not the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you go to Starbucks, you're going to get the same coffee every single time. And I was in a conference this weekend, and we got to visit the Starbucks headquarters in Seattle, and we got a fantastic presentation. And, one of the key things that Starbucks has is a great training and mentoring and coaching program for their employees. They have very, very detailed and specific playbooks. And then they train their managers to coach their employees on how to use those procedures and those playbooks. And that, I think, is super valuable.
Yeah. And there's protocols. So as you're talking, you're so brilliant at what you're doing, because it really is that invisible internal stuff that will make the difference with the company. How about companies with protocols? Let's use HVAC. They have certain protocols, requirements, regulations they have to follow, each technician. You can help with that too, to make sure they don't get repercussion from a government, agency. Hey, you broke this rule or whatever might have happened.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, you do have the protocols, and you see what happens. Like, let's say, for instance, they have to get a permit, like at the end of each job and whatnot. So they know that, but sometimes it's not documented. So yes, we're going to document that as well. Or what I find is that there are companies that they have to, if they're regulated, I mean, HVAC is not such a regulated, I mean, they do have their regulations, but let's take, for instance, we had a client, which is actually a very famous ice cream chain, right? Franchise. So we have the franchisee that has 3 stores, with their protocols. Now they have protocols from headquarters about, like, the temperature of the fridge has to be at a certain degree, otherwise, the ice cream will go bad. There has to be some cleanliness in the kitchen that has to be maintained, because otherwise, the health department are going to shut them down. So those protocols obviously are written because you have to, because there are so many repercussions if you don't, right? The same thing with working with a medical doctor. There will be some things there, like, the violation of the privacy, of the patients, that has to be documented. But what about the rest? What about how you greet a customer, or how you greet a patient? How do you schedule a patient? How do you handle it when you get 3 orders at once? Like, how do you handle things? Or like before holidays, how do you staff the franchise to make sure you have enough people there so you can service everyone, right? How do you answer the phone? How do you sell something over the phone? How do you upsell when somebody calls in for, to order a cake for a birthday? How do you also upsell so they also get ice cream as well? So all of those are processes that we do, but if we don't have them documented, you can't really scale, because it's not, you can't make them repeatable, and you need to make them repeatable. This is the only way you're going to scale.
So well said. And talking about training, that's a lot of money. You got a new employee. I know owners and founders, and I was owner and founder. You always freak out, like, okay, I walk away from, because I used to run a ice cream shop. So it's funny to use that sample. And you're right, regulations are really tough from the health department. But I'd leave the shop and worry, okay, I got a new employee there. Are they going to follow my protocols, my processes?
Right.
And in the company I work with, they had a book. Again, my job to make sure they read the book, but at least it's there for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man, and I've said it before, it's a game changer for a business, what you do.
It is. It absolutely is. Like, for instance, one of our clients, you can go on LinkedIn and see the success story, but they basically reduced the time that it took them to train a new CSR by 75%.
Wow.
Another client, they were able to reduce the time of training a new biller, their medical billers, by probably the same amount. And it is a significant amount of money, because, if you are paying somebody, think about the time that it actually takes you to train somebody. It's not that just their time that they're not producing for you, but the time that you are taking from somebody else to train them, because they are not producing for you either. You need to get them to continue to produce, but then you're pulling them off to train somebody else. Their capacity can go down even to 50% capacity, because the rest of it they're using training. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, there is going to be no substitute to one-on-one training and on-the-job training. But once, instead of explaining everything from scratch, just imagine, like, what we create is that training manual that they can go, and we break it down to very, very specific steps with videos, with screenshots, so people can actually read it and they understand what needs to be done, and then they can be shown once. And then we also create tests and exercises so they can repeat it, and you don't have to pull people off of what they're doing in order to actually train somebody.
Yeah, the fallback too is no, that's not the way to do it. Well, let's go back to our manual. Remember, here's how we scoop the ice cream, whatever that is. It's there as the Bible for the business.
You're absolutely right, because you can have an employee. I mean, yeah, you brought a good point in terms of like, you're not sure, are they going to do it or not? Well, the solution is in the results, right? Because you can see if the sales were wonderful when you were gone, and and they didn't like just gave ice cream for free,
right.
and and the place is clean and the regulations were followed, that they followed the process. But if you spotted something that did not, it's very easy, instead of he said, she said, and just like back and forth pointing fingers, is to open the manual and ask yourself, was the process followed? If it wasn't, why not? Maybe it's not the right process. Maybe it needs to be revised, or maybe there is more training that is needed, etc. Steve, it's also the point of, it's not just the training and the onboarding and the consistency. There is also the risk mitigation, because what if at your ice cream shop you had a shift manager who was like amazing, but they knew everything. They knew how to run the cash register. They knew how to order and who are your vendors. They knew everything. And they said, okay, Steve, don't worry, I have it, And then little by little, you became a little bit disconnected from the business, but they had all the knowledge, right? And now, one day something happens. Good things, bad things. I know people like to say run over by the bus, but let's be positive. Let's say they got this amazing opportunity and they have to go right now, okay? Or their spouse got relocated and they have to move, or, whatever happened, right? We have to be prepared for anything. But if that person leaves, then what? Then where is the knowledge? So that's why that knowledge transfer is so important. And that's what we do as well. Like, we interviewed and we document, we create it into processes from the knowledge that the founder has, and also the knowledge of the key employees. And we document everything so it doesn't get lost.
I really like that, because I'm thinking as a founder owner, I can always go back to it, because I'm not there day to day. You don't want to be founder owner. If you're not there day to day, your business is great, but it allows me to go back and reference the processes and go, hey, Audie, I just went through the manual. Hey, I think we need to change this. What do you think? So it helps the founder owner as well.
Absolutely, because it's there. It's, I have clients that tell me, we want to change the process, right? So why don't we write the process? Let's change it. So, okay, well, if your business is doing well right now, let's just look at existing state. Let's document existing state. That's like an X-ray, right? It's kind of like, if the bone is not broken, why are we going to operate? Just because, it's not going to work. We have to X-ray and see what is broken, what is not functioning. And the only way that we can do it is by actually laying out the entire process from beginning to end, document it, and then go over it and see where the bottlenecks really are, where things can be improved, where we can do things a little bit better and in a different way. So then we can look at future state and what are the exact actions that we need to do in order to get to future state.
Yeah, it's not a very good mask. They don't have a system document. And they go, Audie, my business is doing great. I do $1 million a year. Well, two things. You said earlier, grow or scale. Do you might want to go to 5 million? Well, you won't do that without that. Or two, if somebody leaves or something starts happening, you have nothing to fall back on. That's the power of you.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
Let's do a quick shout out. How could people reach out to you? Because I know people are going to reach out to you and want to learn how they can help their processes. Absolutely.
So, the best way is you can text me. It's 503-662-2911. That's again, 503-662-2911. Go to LinkedIn, Adi Klevit, ADI, and then KLEVIT. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of articles that I post every week about process improvement. I'm all about, that's where we so get along. I'm all about helping other business owners and entrepreneurs. So all of our articles have information and step-by-step actions that you can take right away to implement. I have different examples of different systems and different processes. But also when you go on LinkedIn, there is a link there to schedule a 30-minute free consultation with me. So just go ahead and do that. And of course, my website, which is Biz Success CG for consulting group. So BIZ, the word success spelled out, consulting, C for consulting and G for group.com, bizsuccesscg.com. You can also find all of our blogs there, our podcast, our, and a link to schedule a time. So just go ahead and do that. And I'll be happy to talk to you. I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love talking to business owners, and I love giving advice, and any question that you have about processes, I'd love to answer.
Well, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I love what you do. I love processes. Marcus Lemonis, if you know him, he has people, process, but I know process, he's the 3 Ps: product, people, process, product.
Right.
And when you watch that show, the process is the thing that fails every single time he has to fix. Sometimes the people, sometimes the product, but always the process. So I'm going to give people a gift. The first 5 people that reach out to you, Audie, they get a $20 Amazon gift card from me.
Wow. Okay.
And we're not saying me and Audie, you have to buy. Just reach out for a discovery call, because I want you to learn for 30 minutes. You're going to learn even more what you're learning today, that you have a business, you need to talk to her. If you don't have a process in place, you need to talk to her. If you don't have a document, you need to talk to her. So let's make a little money doing that. How's that sound?
Sounds amazing. So generous.
Thank you so much. It's doing business, servant's heart. That's what we do, right?
Absolutely.
Question, devil's advocate question. Some listeners are listening, business owners going, Audie, why can't I do this myself?
Good question. And that's one of the questions that I ask. I mean, when I'm doing a discovery call, I always ask, why do you want to document, and why you're not doing it yourself? Because, if you can do it yourself, I would definitely suggest you do it yourself. 2 things that come up in the answer is, 1, time. Just like, I probably could figure out how to do my own taxes. Am I ever going to do it? Never. No. So, one of the things that we learn as entrepreneurs, we're being taught that in every business class that you go to, every seminar, is that stay in your lane, in your genius zone, and delegate. Otherwise, how we're going to ever do anything, right? Especially if you have a servant heart and you want to do good for your business, but also for your family and for the community, and do other things. I mean, when are we going to document? It's just like, I don't do my own marketing. I hire people. Can I do it? Yes, I can. I have experience in doing that. I probably could figure it out. I just don't have the time. I know where my hat is. I wear my hat and I do what I do. So it's lack of time. And honestly, it's also lack of know-how. There are people out there that are, I'm not the only person in this universe that can write processes. There are wonderful people out there. I'm an industrial engineer, the other engineers, the other people that are very process oriented, and it's great. Yeah. But there are people that do not have that knack. They have great talents, but one of them is not writing processes. And we write it in such a way that it's very concise, very to the point. It has to be done in such a way that there is a balance of how much do you write and how much you actually use the videos and the screenshots, and how much do you go into detail. Like, I had a client that said that, his business partner was going into details and wrote this 100-page manual, and he cannot go into detail enough and wrote like a few paragraphs. We have to find the golden path in between. So we have a great methodology. So that would be another reason, is the know-how. Some people are super creative and they just want to create, but they cannot even conceive sitting down and typing and writing. So it's a combination of time, know-how, and honestly, it also, I guess it's just feeds on that, is also we get it done. Like, I had a business owner one time that told me he was a repair shop, an auto mechanic repair shop owner. And he said that he had it on his to-do list for the last 20 years to actually document his processes and how things are being done. And we came in and we got it all done. So we basically, we are the catalyst that actually will make your project happen.
Yeah, and that's important, because I know people that push aside, I'll get to it. And you're right, years go by. And as an owner or manager or director, was it taking you away doing that? What should you be working on, except you're spending 2 hours a day working on this, when you could just, at a better cost, hire you to do it with your team.
Right. And it's an investment. It's definitely a significant investment of time and resources and money. But you have to ask yourself, what is my return on investment? And that's what I always like to look at, because I tell my clients, I do not want to engage on this project unless I'm going to give you a return on investment. And the return on investment is either actual increase of the bottom line because things are more efficient. It can be with better training, but it also adds to employee retention, because employees get confused if they don't know what they're doing, or they get frustrated, or, if you tell them to do something and you change your mind every other day, it will create a lot of frustration, right? It also creates instability. I remember it, Steve, we documented the processes for a company, a pretty big real estate company. And we showed it, we roll it out, because we always do. We don't just document, we also make sure that the processes are being followed by all. So we rolled it out, and I remember the relief that one of the employees, basically after that, they came to us and they told us, they go, in my last place of work, I felt very insecure because I never knew if I'm going to have a job the next day, because there was an instability that having that documentation and like a good org chart and good basics of managing, it gave him the stability that the business is really investing in its continuity and being there. And that made a huge difference.
Huge. Unhappy employees, unhappy business, I say.
Absolutely.
It really falls down to that. Well, we ran out of time. I do want you coming back for part 2. I hope you can come back. Absolutely. We've got a lot more we could add, but I want to make this short so they at least get to know you today. And I want to thank you for being on. You are incredible and brilliant at what you do, and your servant heart is large. So I really thank you for sharing that with us today. With that being said, what's one tip you can leave my audience to help them that you've learned over your years?
Steve, it all comes to the servant heart and people like you. And it's really what I learned is really, associate with people that are positive, associate with people that like to give. Our best, I think the best thing that each one of us can do is really help others. So help your employees, help the business, help the customers. And we talked about it before the show. Also, let them help you. Be open to the suggestions, be open to receive the help, be open to surround yourself with people that can complement who you are and help you. And I think if you do that, you're going to be super successful at everything that you do.